Before we jump into the next clip, I just want to tell you real quick, we got a new audio network. Go to tyt.com/audio and get all of our new podcasts. So CNN did a fun article, and I will take it in the spirit that I think it was intended. And they titled it, "The Definitive Ranking of 2020 Democrats." Okay, now, that's bold, so I like that. And I think they're being tongue in cheek, to be fair. I don't think that they really think it's the definitive ranking, especially this far out.
It's certainly clickbaity. I mean, yes. I think anyone would want to click on that and see what they have to say.
And to be fair, I clicked on it.
Right.
Okay, and so I don't mind the over-the-top title, that's fun, okay. So let's, I don't want to go through the whole list for you guys, but I thought one was particularly interesting, or two of them. So where did Bernie Sanders come in? Now, he came in second last time. Wait a minute, it turns out number 5. Now, when Hillary Clinton came in second to Barack Obama, she was assumed to be the number 1 candidate next time. In fact, she was assumed to be the number 1 candidate so much people said, you shouldn't even primary her. It would be terrible for the Democratic Party for anyone to challenge her. Now, Bernie Sanders also happens to be the most popular politician in the country and in the Democratic Party. And Hillary Clinton, if she had those kind of numbers, they did it anyway, but if she had those numbers, they'd be like, everybody get out of the race, get out of the race, get out of the race.
Like, don't even waste our time.
Clear the field, we got to save money so we can fight the Republicans. No, he's not number 1, he's not number 2, number 3, number 4. No, he's down at number 5. But, okay, let's be fair. Why? So this is one of the reasons why. I said, so why is Sanders not higher? He's a white male, and Democrats may be looking to turn the page from 2016.
Okay, can we stop for a second? So I know that progressives get painted in this picture where we want to give people certain advantages simply because they're a minority or because they're a woman. And I do agree that some people like that do exist, right? They do think that way, which infuriates me, which is what we also experienced during the 2016 election, where some women in the Democratic Party shamed other women in the Democratic Party for wanting to vote for Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton during the primaries because Hillary's a woman, you should vote for a woman. But no, it doesn't work that way, and it shouldn't work that way. Look, you want equality of opportunity, right? You want to hear people out and you want to hear their case and you want to decide based on their policy proposals whether or not that is the right person to represent you. So the idea of me looking at a guy and thinking, you're a white guy, so I'm just gonna by default say no, that is not smart thinking. Don't do that, please. I'm begging people, don't think that way.
Yes, so we fight against racism, we fight against sexism, we fight against all those things. But that doesn't mean people should be disqualified based on their race or sex. That's a preposterous thought. And the question is, how good are you on those issues, yes. Right? Anyway, so that's a good point politically. But for the purposes of this, I was most amused by the reasoning. He's now, and they might be projecting onto the Democrats, so the Democrats don't want, or maybe they don't want. But they said, look, since he's a white male, he does not stand as good a chance. Plus, it's old news, 2016. You don't want to do a retread of somebody from 2016. So old white male, no. So curious to see who came in number 1. So let's take a look.
Come on, come on.
A white male, a retread from politics of 2016 and beyond. And by the way, he is just as old as Bernie Sanders.
Is he really?
Yes. So no excuse, none.
I didn't know that. I thought that maybe he was slightly younger, but.
He might be younger by a year or less. So they're nearly identical. So no excuse. They're like, oh no, we can't have retreads, white males. No, that's why Joe Biden number 1. I mean, I don't know if they just realize how funny the hypocrisy of that statement is.
No, it's insane. And by the way, just to reiterate, like, my desire for Bernie to be higher on that list as opposed to Biden has nothing to do with the fact that they're white males. So I'm not against Biden for being a white male.
That would be preposterous.
Yeah, but I think Biden has wonderful qualities. However, I think that he has a blind spot, a huge blind spot when it comes to what the people who wanted Bernie Sanders really desire in a leader. So.
No, it's not even close. Look, we'll find out who's right and who's wrong. To me, and it's not because of and it's easy for people to say, I don't believe you, right? But it's not because of my bias. So I'll give you an example, right? So I can't stand Donald Trump. And I said that he would win the Republican primary in June of 2015. Put aside the general election and all that stuff. In the primaries, June of 2015, 6 months before the voting, I couldn't stand him. And I said, look, I can see the polling. I can see how the fervor. He's gonna win, and they keep attacking each other and not Donald Trump. That's a terrible strategy.
Right.
He's gonna win, right? And I'm telling you right now, the overwhelming number one candidate for 2020 is Bernie Sanders. Not because I agree with him. He has gigantic name recognition. His popularity is through the roof. Now, Biden is also popular, to be fair to Biden, okay? And so let me read you CNN's logic for why they picked Biden, and I'll tell you what's wrong with it, okay? They said the former vice president may not seem like the perfect fit for the moment in the Democratic Party. He's older, 75, white, male, and has been in electoral politics for more than 4 decades. And yet Biden has something that no other candidate in the field has.
Oh, what is it?
He's on top of early polls gauging the 2020 field. So is Bernie Sanders, but you put him at number 5. He's leading in national polls, so is Bernie Sanders. To be fair to Biden, sometimes Biden's number 1, sometimes Sanders is number 1. But according to this logic, Sanders should at least be number 2, right? Anyway, he's leading in national polls, early primary state polls, and in a matchup against Trump. Sanders crushes against Trump in the same polls. They say that's no guarantee Biden wins the nomination, but if history holds, it's an indicator he'll be right there until the end. Also not true. None of that is true, except for the fact that Biden does do well in the polls. So we're trying to look at the actual facts. Now, why do I think Biden will fade? And this idea that he always is there till the end, because he's not always there till the end. I've seen him in 3 different elections. He goes out immediately. So in 2008, and I like Biden, but in 2008, he went out after Iowa. That's the first state. And he came in not 2nd or 3rd or 4th, he came in 5th in Iowa and left the race immediately. So 1988, left the race. Every race, he fades. And Joe Lieberman was at the top of the polls in 2008, in the beginning. Why? Because he had a lot of name recognition, because he was Al Gore's VP nominee, right? He was on the ticket. But he was not popular among Democrats, and it was super obvious. And everybody's like, oh, Joe Lieberman, Joe Lieberman. Now they're talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, as good a guy as he is, he's terrible in primaries. So that's amazing that we're 2 people who presumably are a number of people that look at the same fact pattern and they go, Biden, obviously older white male, does great in primaries. What?
Okay, so I have some thoughts on this as well, because if you look at the reasoning that they gave for this definitive ranking, the reality is all of the reasons have everything to do with perceptions about the horse race as opposed to policy. And that is the mistake that CNN made throughout the entire 2016 election. They did not care about policy. They did not care to ask about policy, at least specific detailed follow-up questions pertaining to policy when they were hosting the debates. And so that is a huge weakness that they have when it comes to making predictions. The reason why people liked Bernie Sanders had nothing to do with his race or his gender or his clothing or how he combs his hair. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the fact that he was willing to talk about the policies and actually appeal to the real concerns that Americans have today. And so the same strategy was used by Trump, actually, right? I mean, Trump didn't mean anything he said, and I think that he's proven that time and time again throughout his presidency. But talking about the issues that actually matter to Americans is a better indicator, as opposed to, is it a man, and do Democrats want a man, a white man? No, we're smarter than that. Let's move on.
And especially millennials, and they're rising, and especially the Bernie Sanders voters, and now he has the name recognition, et cetera. But look, I don't think it's bad intent. I just think that they live in their bubble, and I'm sure that they think we're in a bubble, but we've been proven right a couple of times. I mean, these are the same folks who, again, they don't mean bad by it, but they missed Ocasio-Cortez completely, whereas we did 34 videos on her, and we told you before the election, and we told you what was coming. And it's because we can feel the progressive energy. It's not gonna be close. So, and in their groupthink in Washington, They think about those things. Oh, well, who's what race, what sex? That's what everybody in Washington is buzzing about.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is in great shape because she's African American and a female. Yeah, but what's her policy positions,
Exactly.
right? And they come from a world of television where television doesn't talk about policy. So they think, well, nobody cares. But now we've got a whole generation that grew up on the internet where you could look anything up. So you actually do care about policy because you could look at it, you could research it, etc. I know you don't believe that, but it is the case.
Yes.
And then finally, in one of the reasons for why it won't be Bernie Sanders, they said, well, I don't know if the Democratic Party is ready for a guy who was independent and not technically a Democrat. That's a thing that only people in Washington say. I'm not saying that there isn't 17 other people in the country who feel that way, but the overwhelming majority of the voters, and you can see it in the polls, they're like, what? No, am I getting Medicare for all or am I not getting it? Am I getting a higher wage or am I not getting it? Do my kids have a chance at college or do they not? Does this guy care about me? Does he not care about me? And so Biden, by the way, does great in caring about people. So that would be a fair thing to point about. He's really good at emoting that. But when you talk about, oh, but technically he's not a Democrat. No one outside of Washington cares about that. You're missing the whole thing. And with his name recognition and the love that he's got, and I'm gonna say something that they're gonna find outrageous. I'm watching a documentary on Bobby Kennedy now. And Bernie Sanders reminds me of Bobby Kennedy. They're like, what? You're crazy. Bobby Kennedy was young and dynamic. First of all, Bernie's dynamic. No, but the thing that is similar is when Bobby went through the streets, people were all over him and they were excited because he did things for regular Americans. Once Bobby Kennedy called a landlord in the middle of New York when he was a senator from New York and said, we've got rats biting the babies in your building. And the landlord couldn't believe that a senator would care about somebody in Harlem.
That's amazing.
And that is why Bobby Kennedy was beloved. And people know Bernie Sanders cares. People know that Bernie Sanders is gonna make that call. They know it in their hearts, they know it in their minds. He's going to crush the field. 2 easy ways to follow Young Turks.